The only thing I always say is like, don't quote me on these things because 1 year can make a really big difference in terms of room rates, in terms of inflation costs with outside catering fees. And so you just want to be really mindful of not trying to price your wedding out essentially like 2 years into the future.
You're never going to have a full idea of how much the wedding is going to cost, but having a buffer is going to help you. I can't even tell you how many weddings I've had that they're like, I'm $600,000 over my budget. Like, what are you doing?
Because I always think there's a difference between booking a property that looks good on paper to a property that's going to actually be a good partner with you. What do you say also to the couples? Because this comes up a lot. They're like, okay, I'm going to book 100 rooms, but I want us to all be on the same floor.
Oh, number one request I get all the time.
Welcome to For Real I Do with Brittany Ellis, the unfiltered side of weddings. From planning truths to vendor insights to navigating design, culture, and family dynamics, this is for couples who crave clarity and vendors ready to elevate. Your insider pass with just a little oversharing.
Well, welcome, Miss Gabby.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for letting us borrow your beautiful space. We're here at the Diplomat in Hollywood Beach. For those unfamiliar of Florida, just outside of Fort Lauderdale.
Smack between Miami and Fort Lauderdale.
Right between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So we are in the heart of South Florida, which is fabulous.
Yep.
So Gabby, tell us a little bit about your background for those who are not familiar with just like your hospitality industry experience.
Yeah, so I have been in hospitality for a long time. I started in restaurants when I was like 16 as a hostess, and I knew that that was like the field that I needed to be in. So I went to school to study hospitality. I went to Penn State for 4 years. I left from Miami to Penn State and braced myself for the cold. And then I graduated and I actually went straight into restaurants after that. And after 2 years of like actual restaurant business, it burned me out so bad. So I was like, I need a change in career fast. So I actually stumbled across the Diplomat. So they were hiring. This is my first event job. I've been here for 4 years now, which is crazy to think. A lot of people always ask me, oh, what venue have you been at before? This is my first one. It's a monster of a property to be in. We have the second largest conference space down here, and it's 1,000 guest rooms. So it's not like it's 100 rooms and like call it a day. Like you get broken in quite fast here. So in 4 years, I feel like I know or have an idea of what I'm doing, but there's always so much to learn when it comes to events.
You dove in.
I dove in face first.
Well, obviously, we've worked with your team many times and have had a fabulous experience. So there's a reason why we say we are going to have like a little semi-permanent residence here. It's a beautiful space. Obviously, you underwent some pretty awesome renovations as well to the lobbies. So that's really nice to have this grand reveal for people.
Yes, a 2-year renovation project. We are rebranding in April as a Signia property. So it will still and always will be the Diplomat Beach Resort because God forbid we get rid of that name. But it's one of Hilton's newest luxury brands specified for events and weddings and corporate events. So it's going to be more into that field, which we're super excited about.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So let's dig in because I've got a ton of questions for you that I feel like are just going to be supportive for brides and families that are planning multi-day, multicultural functions. And, 80% of the couples that we work with, I don't know if it's the same for you, don't actually live here in Florida.
Yeah, most of them don't.
Yeah, they don't live here. They're coming here, obviously, to create that Florida vibe experience. And I feel like the resort that they choose or the property that they choose to host is really just such a foundational piece in giving them that experience.
Yeah, it's the first step for them to move forward with the planning process. That they always look for the venue first and then they pick the vendors and so on and so forth. So it's important to find that venue that best fits your needs and what feels right for you. What I love about this place is that I book and I cook, right? So I sell and I contract with you and you stay with me the whole time. There's some venues that don't do that. So it's what you feel the most comfortable with. If it's like, okay, we don't click, but I love the venue. So I know that my planner has me and I'm going to move forward with the planning process there. Or I love Gabby. She's amazing. She's going to be a good support system for me throughout the planning process with my planner in addition. So that's the biggest point of that. But yeah, most people come from out of town, mostly from up north or even the west we've got in. And even the people that are local, that are from Miami or up west Florida or something like that, they still have a lot of people staying here, making it a
Mhm.
destination for the guests to come in. Because even though they're local, most of the guests are coming in from some place or another.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think with you service and or selling and servicing in the industry, I feel like because you're gonna be obviously not dealing with, but you're gonna be working with me and my client for basically all the months leading to the event date. It's in your best interest to obviously sell the event spaces and the resort that is in alignment with essentially what their expectations are going to be, because the last thing you want to do is get down the road and be like, oh, it probably would have been better fit here, or maybe I should have chimed in and said, hey, are you flexible on the weekend, we can do this instead. What is your really approach when it comes to, because obviously all venues are wanting to book their spaces naturally, of course, but what's your take on when you're making sure that the couple is the right fit for a venue?
Yeah, so that's definitely something you know when you first step foot on property, right? Like the
Mhm.
first meeting, you know if you have a click with them or not. There's some people that come here for tours and they are just like not interested, and you just know from the beginning. Sometimes they surprise you and they book,
Mhm.
but most of the time you kind of know at that point. So it's kind of when you step in, you do that first meeting interaction. Basically, how the tour goes is how you can get a feel of if it's going to be the right fit for you or not. And of course, it's coming in and understanding the different events you're trying to host, because that helps us know what spaces to show you and how we can get creative with event spaces. When the lead process comes in, some people are like, oh, I just want to throw a wedding. Okay, what type of wedding? How many people? What are you looking to host this? What are the different events you're looking to host?
Mhm.
With South Asian weddings, you're not just coming here to do the ceremony and then the cocktail and the reception. You have like 3 to 4 days of events you're trying to host. So it's always great to lead with that up front so that we know, okay, you're trying to do a haldi. This is a really good spot for a haldi because you need to be outside for that.
Mhm.
Or I'm trying to do the Mendy. Okay, Mendy's actually work really well doing them in your guest suite because it's a little bit more casual and you can do all of this going on. So it just depends on all of that. But knowing all of that up front is so much more helpful for when you come on property so that we can really show you what we have to offer.
Yeah. And if you're also hearing Gabby use words like Haldi and Mendy, like she's been around the block, y'all. She definitely knows about South Asian weddings. And I will say, as a planner, it makes such a big difference when you have a venue that's going to be a true partner with you in the contracting experience and in the on-site execution. Because if you know and you've done events like this in the past, you also know how to best guide and support your couples. You know that we're not going to come in and just need ballroom space. You know we're going to need a dance practice room and a hair and makeup room and a hospitality room and all these different like layers to that. What would you say, just for couples that are looking at venues right now? What are some of like maybe the green flags or red flags that they should look out for when they're looking for a property that ultimately is going to really be like a property that they should consider?
Hmm.
Because I always think there's a difference between booking a property that looks good on paper to a property that's going to actually be a good partner with you throughout all the months leading to and execution on site.
Yeah, one is the experience. That's the most helpful, I think. When I first started here, of course, I didn't have any experience doing this, but my staff did. I've had the same staff here for 20 years. So if there was something that I didn't know how to approach, or if I was missing something, they were the first ones to come and be like, hey, actually, they love using spoons just because of the way that their dishes are prepared. So you should expect more usage of that. Just little things like that is really helpful. And then also to the event spaces, right? So when you're looking at properties that are maxed out at 200 people, that's kind of a red flag.
Mhm.
These weddings tend to be larger in numbers, and even if you contract at 200 people, you're probably going to grow to like 250 to 300. I've never had an Indian wedding that shrinks in numbers. It's quite rare, actually, because once one person hears about it, everybody wants to join. So finding a venue too that has the space to grow, I think it's really important. It's also hard to find that depending on where you're looking.
Mhm.
So it's good to look at venues in areas that are familiar with and have the space to grow, which is nice.
Mhm.
And then also too with outdoor space, a lot of these destination weddings, why are they picking a destination wedding? They want to have that indoor outdoor feel for the multi-day events. Any venue that you look at that has an outdoor space, you need to be mentally prepared that there's an indoor backup space and what that's going to look like. Specifically here with South Florida, the weather, you just never know what's going to happen. Yeah, we have a rainy season and we have hurricane season, but it might be the most beautiful day in January. And then 20 minutes later, it's a monsoon outside and then it clears up after. And even if it's a 20-minute rainstorm, that might delay your decorator. They might not be able to set up or anything like that. So even when you're looking at these resorts and like, okay, beautiful, I have my outdoor ceremony. What does the inside look like? Let me mentally prepare myself of what that might look like as a backup and being okay with what the backup looks like as well,
Mhm.
because you just never know how that's going to end up.
Yeah, and I think I love what you said because it really is visually walking through the couple from the perspective of plan A, plan B, and quite frankly, like here's what we would cap out at in this space, like you said, because I 100%, I always say like, you don't want to contract necessarily for your top end number in case you do have like, I'm talking top end, like if you're, expecting 350 attendees, maybe we contract for 300 or 325. Give yourself a little bit of cushion there, but
Mhm.
if you know that you're most likely going to grow, like don't book within a space that is going to just tighten those confines and not allow you that flexibility later on when you send the invitations out and things to that end.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing with that.
Yeah.
And a cushion is always good to have as well.
Mhm.
We know that if you're contracting at 300, you're probably going to grow to 350.
Mhm.
I can't speak on how other venues do their food and beverage minimums and stuff, but I've always found it best for me to do it kind of within a seat fee and a guest count breakdown,
Mhm.
just to give you an idea that even if those numbers fluctuate, you kind of have an idea of what that pricing structure looks like,
Mhm.
so that when you have that grow, it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, what is that going to look like? You
Right.
can calculate that on your
Right.
own.
Right.
So it's helpful.
Exactly. Exactly. One thing that is in the market right now that I hear from couples all the time is like, "Are we too late to start booking? Are we too late to
Oh,
start planning?" And it's literally like sometimes we're like more than a year out. And I feel like the scarcity mindset is something I'm trying to actively quell a little bit with couples because I don't know where or when there was a shift that they automatically thought that they now needed like 2 years to plan their wedding.
oh my gosh.
Um, but but do you see that? And like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so that's one thing. People come in over a year out and they're freaking out thinking that they need to book. I've booked weddings for 500 plus people in a 2-month period. Like
Mhm.
anything is possible if you have a solid team with you. But we are starting to see like 2 years out and a year and a half out, which sometimes we can accommodate, but 9 times out of 10 at this size of a property, I can barely even accommodate over a year out, just because of we need to wait for some patterns to fill up.
Mhm.
We need to wait for space to open up. Sometimes our systems don't even let us see that far out. So when people come in and they're a year and a half out, it's kind of like, okay, I can give you some basic information, but I can't really help you too much at this point
Mhm.
because I don't have any dates to give you. And when I don't have any dates to give you, I don't have any spacing to give you. Like I can't give you a full breakdown because there's a whole process to the inquiry and proposal stage. But without that initial step of here are your dates, there's only so far we can go. And it kind of puts a big pause in the planning process. And I'm sure with some vendors as well, they can't book that far out either because they just don't know what it's going to look like that far out,
Right.
what their schedules are going to look like. So it's great that you're ahead of the game, or maybe just reaching out to see what it feels like out there. But a year out is the safest spot in terms of finding the venue and dates and stuff like that, especially with Indian weddings because there's so many things going on versus a traditional wedding that's usually about 1 day. I think a year out is your safety zone. Sometimes we can do a little bit outside of a year out, but 2 years, it's like
Yeah.
try not to reach out because you're
It's
not going to get
it's a
much.
lot.
And
It's a
things
lot.
can change, packages change, pricing change,
Mhm.
economy changes.
Mhm.
So for me to quote you for 2026 when you're getting married in 2028, a lot of things can change and then it's
Mhm.
kind of going to be like mishap information.
Mhm. And I understand, one thing that's unique about at least our clientele is the vast majority of them are in medical residency or doctors or like highly intelligent individuals that are going to school or wrapping that up or in their careers. So they sort of know what they're going to be doing in the next 3 years. They're like, hey, I'm moving here. I'm going to be graduating here. And so I do get that the life path is probably what is somewhat dictating them starting the process early. I always say, hey, like get your foundational stuff set first. If you want to have foundational conversations about, budget, location, narrowing down the properties that you would be interested in reaching out to, maybe historically working with a planner to talk about like, average numbers. The only thing I always say is like, don't quote me on these things because 1 year can make a really big difference in terms of room rates, in terms of inflation costs with
Oh
outside
yeah.
catering fees. And so you just want to be really mindful of not trying to price your wedding out essentially like 2 years into the future with the current rates, because if quite frankly, if the last 3 years have shown me anything, I'm like, the wedding budgets are wild.
Yes.
Like, literally, I mean, true story, but, like, when we were sending out, like, average wedding quotes, we always price the wedding out prior to clients proceeding forward, and, like, 3 to maybe 5 years ago, I would say, like, those 350 attendees for maybe, like, a Sanghi wedding and reception was falling somewhere maybe between, like, I don't know, like 350K-ish.
Okay.
And now it's like starting at like
Yeah.
500 and then going up from there.
Yeah.
And then it's all dependent upon what the level of expectation is from the family, which quite frankly have increased.
Of course it has.
Expectations have increased because exposure has increased. What's your take on, again, back to like just chatting about guest experience? How do resorts really create a guest experience from time of arrival to time of departure, aside from like just the events? Like, what is it for you that you feel like resorts provide for that?
Yeah, it's nice when you do a resort because you get that all-inclusive feel. It starts with one person. That one person is me. Whoever your main point of contact at the venue is probably the most important contact in terms of sharing all that information.
Mhm.
When you have your guests checking in at a certain time and you want to get them in as early as possible, let me know what time you think they're coming in at so that I can secure those rooms for you ahead of time. Or I can put a note like, hey, mom's planning to come in at 10 a.m. Can we prioritize her room so she can get in? So we do a lot of meetings internally to make sure that we get all of those details out to the team. We do resume meetings where we literally break down each department: front desk, accounting, recreations, food and beverage, FedEx is even involved in it.
Mhm.
So there's all these different departments that these hotels have because it's like a little city over here. We're such a big property. You have so many hands in the pot
Mhm.
that if you don't communicate that information to me, I can't communicate it to my team. So that's probably the number one starting point with that. As much information as you can give me, the better. I might not be your wedding planner, but if you can tell me that the decorators bring in this specific vase, if she leaves that vase behind, I can see which vase it is and I can get it back to her. So
Right.
it's just those little things that really helps bring the resort together.
Mhm.
And then it's the little surprise and delights that we can provide you, right?
Mhm.
So you may mention to me in a walkthrough one day that you love champagne. That's your favorite thing. Vouv is your number one. Fantastic. Guess what you're getting upon check-in? A
Mhm.
bottle of champagne and maybe some chocolate-covered strawberries.
Mhm.
So there's these little things that we like to pick up during the planning process, that we talk just in a chat or in a walkthrough and stuff like that, that we try to go above and beyond. The team also notifies everybody, like even the level managers and the line workers, like, hey, this wedding's coming in. This is what the bride and groom looks like. We put pictures of the planners so the team knows when you're walking through the lobby, oh my God, congratulations on your wedding.
Mhm.
These little things really makes a huge difference because once you come on site for the wedding after such a stressful planning process, you just want to enjoy the weekend.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better that when you're just sitting by the cabana and someone's like, oh my God, congratulations. It brings everything back to life for you.
Yeah, I mean, and quite frankly, like that's a big part of we talk about like ROI on this big investment that you're making for the wedding weekend. It's like you can either lean into the pros and your venue and your partners that have been supporting you all the way through, or you can continue to be in planning mode and continue to micromanage. And I feel truly in my heart to some extent. I work with a lot of type A's. I'm a type A myself. I get it. But to some degree, you also have to think about intentionally what is the experience that you also want to create for yourself. And I think when you have people, advocating for you, like some of the personal touches that you're talking about, they're here to help you. They're here to help you create that experience together. It's not necessarily like you're on your own with your planner. It's like involve your team. And I feel like I will say throughout the history of my career, I'm very much like blinders on, like me and my client, we're doing this together. And I think that what's evolved for me very much in my personal career has been being more collaborative with the people that I'm working with,
Hmm.
because there's so much knowledge and inspiration and ideas that they bring to the table that are going to feel unique and different for their couple as well.
Yeah, it's hard to let go sometimes because I'm the
Mhm.
same way
Mhm.
with where I work. Like sometimes
Mhm.
I want to do everything myself,
Mm.
but I can't. I'm one person and I get
Right.
pulled into so many different directions that I have to rely on my team,
Yeah.
that I did my job in communicating what the needs are and what the details are, because with weddings, there's a lot of details that go into it.
Mhm.
And I have to trust that they're going to execute for me. And if they don't, we're going to fix it. What can we do to make this better? And how can we move forward from it?
Right. Because at the end of the day, we're not robots.
Right.
We do make mistakes. I'm a big advocate with my office. I'm like, it's okay if you make a mistake, just don't make the same mistake twice.
Right.
Like let's like literally deep dive dissect what was the root of where that mistake came from, and then let's create an SOP for it so that it doesn't happen again. So I'm a really big believer in obviously elevating. We can't all be perfect, but one thing I do want to talk about, which we've run into before because this venue is so popular, rooms.
Oh my goodness.
So talk to me about your take on, because I'll be honest with you, there's no like perfect science and equation out there to like support couples when it comes to room blocks. And they're always asking me like, so if I have 300 guests, it's just half that, right? And I'm like, well,
Mm.
then you have your vendors, and then like how many of your college buddies are going to partner together, or like based on the room rates, are you going to have what's your take on supporting and guiding couples for booking the right amount of inventory that they need? And
Mhm.
then when are like good check-ins to have? Because I mean, properties sell out, y'all. It's the truth. It happens.
Yeah, rooms is a really, really tricky spot with weddings because you just don't know who's going to RSVP and who's going to stay at the hotel. Some people may be like, oh, the pricing is too high. Let me stay at an Airbnb. So you really just don't have a grasp. But I always tell people at the end of the day, you're going to know that your immediate family is going to stay here,
Mhm.
your close friends, your bridal party, like that immediate group is going to stay here on property. They're not going to want to stay anywhere else. So you can count those people in.
Mhm.
You know, off the bat, if you're coming in with a wedding planner already, that your wedding planner team needs to stay here.
Mhm.
So those are just little things to think about. One thing that I've seen a lot is not contracting rooms for a day before when you have events starting in the morning.
Mhm.
So if you have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday pattern for your events that you're doing, and Thursday you're starting at 10 a.m., if you don't contract rooms for Wednesday night, your guest might not get any inventory in the hotel. With how these types of venues work, it's usually the weekdays is a little crazier than the weekends, right? So on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we may be sold out, but then inventory opens up a Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Mhm.
So if you know off the bat that Thursday morning, I'm doing my first event and I need all of my guests to be here, book rooms for Wednesday as if you were booking for Thursday and Friday,
Mhm.
right? So if you're doing 75 rooms Friday, 75 rooms on Saturday, do 75 rooms for that Wednesday as well. You
Mhm.
just want to secure the inventory. Every venue is a little different in terms of like where your wiggle room is in a nutrition world. So how many rooms you can kind of fall short before you're responsible for it. But it's always a conversation you need to have with your sales team in terms of what rooms you're looking to do. Obviously, with a higher room block, a hotel is going to give you more stuff because it's more inventory that you're taking from them for a better value. And there's all those little things too, like the resort fee, you get a better deal off of. Parking, you get a better deal off of. Can we include breakfast? There's all these little things that you can get when you do a room block, but it's always just having an idea and also to talking to the salesperson. Hey, from your experience with a 350-person wedding, what have you seen in the past works better with a room block? 9 times out of 10, we have history on something.
Mhm.
For 250 to 300 people, I'll probably see 75 to 100 rooms on peak. Okay, maybe that's a good starting point. Let me start at 75. It's easier to add rooms than to decrease in rooms, and it's easier to add rooms on a weekend pattern than it is on a weekday pattern. So it's a little all over the place and a little confusing, and we will do the best that we can to add more rooms for you based upon availability. But like you said, hotels sell out, right? So sometimes we can't make it happen, but it's just coming in as the okay, let me come prepared into what that pattern's going to look like. And if I can't fill those rooms and we're sold out, is there any hotels close by
Mhm.
that we can kind of move people in and then move them in as we get closer to? Just little
Right.
things like that. It's
Right.
a little complicated.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is complicated. I swear, like I've been doing this for a really long time, and the rooms piece is always one that you try your best to navigate. You obviously have check-in periods where like, okay, how is our room block trending? A lot of couples these days, it's so funny because like save the dates used to go out like 6 months in advance, and invitations were sent maybe like 8 to 10 weeks prior, and now it's like as soon as that venue signed, it's like we're asking for RSVPs. We're like, where are we at? Are you coming? Are you not coming?
Hmm.
It's like a save the date with an early intent is what I say, and that really helps us to almost better plan and forecast how many rooms we're potentially going to need to add, especially when you have higher numbers. I mean, we quite frankly have clients that are like, well, we have 800 people, but we got to tier this thing out. And so we're thinking about strategically what can we do to early forecast who people are coming in. But I love your point about, especially for immediate families, if you know your parents are going to come in on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, or you have a holiday ceremony on a Thursday, check in on Wednesday, y'all. Like check in time. By the way, check in time universally is like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
4 o'clock.
Just because you're hosting your wedding, please understand again, they will do everything they can, but it is not guaranteed. And so it's one of those things that if you're like having, I don't know, 6 of your nearest and dearest that all need a room and they all need to check in at like 9 a.m., that's not going to be a guarantee. So you have to really think about, is it worth the stress or should we just get the night prior? And going ahead and just securing, I always like to do at venue contracting, let's just go ahead and block off or secure what your family is going to need. Parents, siblings, immediate family, just so that that inventory is secured and saved, because you just never know.
You never know. Weddings is always a tricky place to put, corporate event comes in and they know I need 900 rooms on peak. Fantastic. Here's
Yeah.
your contract. Have a great day.
Right.
Weddings, it's like you don't want to get into a situation that you book 100 rooms and only 50 people want to stay here because then you're responsible for the rest of it. So it's like finding that good number, the immediate family, talk to the people that have the experience, talk to the professionals. What have you seen in your experience when you work with planners that have been to a hotel before, like you and I, right? We work a lot together. You can talk to them and be like, hey, at the Diplomat, this is their inventory and this is what we've seen for this time of the year.
Mhm.
That's another thing to take a look at, the time of the year.
Mhm.
January, February, and March for us is our busiest season. So you'll see rooms selling out a lot faster than the summertime, right? So then in the summertime, you might have a little bit more flex and okay, maybe we'll contract at 50 rooms and then we'll have a little bit more availability to increase as we get closer, but you're not going to have that flexibility when we're in those peak seasons. So it's
Yeah.
kind of getting an idea there. Again, just trusting your professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you say also to the couples? Because this comes up a lot. They're like, okay, I'm going to book 100 rooms, but I want us to all be on the same floor.
Oh, number
How do
one
you do that?
request I get all the
Which I
time.
get it. I mean, I get it, but like, what's realistic with that request?
The one thing you're always going to hear from a hotel is based upon availability.
Mm-hmm.
We will make the world move for you based upon availability. So
Mm-hmm.
we will do the best that we can to keep your guest within the same floor or around each other, but you also have to keep in mind that there's different room types on the same floor. So if all of your guests are booking in standard rooms, but I have like 5 standard rooms on this floor and then I have suites and then I have doubles and I have extended rooms and all of that, there's not a possibility of keeping all of your guests on the same floor because there's not enough inventory on that floor.
That makes sense because a lot of couples will ask me, well, like they know a year and a half in advance. Why can't they just book that 33rd floor or whatever the floor is? And I'm like, again, yeah, because the inventory is going to be different. You might have people that want king beds, connecting beds, somebody's requesting a crib, this person needs this. And there's so many different. So again, back to the guest experience, it's almost like let's not try to fit a square peg into a round hole. I mean, how often are you guys going to be like hanging out in the hallway together?
Right.
Rarely. Now, do I understand that mom may need to be next door to you as a non-negotiable, or your sister needs to be next for obvious reasons? Yes. But I think when you're asking for,
All
200
the
of your nearest
guests.
and dearest to be on the same floor, that can be a little
Yeah, it's
challenging.
definitely a different ask when it's a couple people or a couple family members versus the entire guest count.
Mm-hmm.
I've even gotten the request of having people not close to each other whatsoever. That we can make happen. I can put you on 2 separate sides of the hotel,
Different
no
islands.
problem.
Yes.
But it's an unrealistic ask. Again, we'll do the best that we can
Mm-hmm.
based upon availability,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just really keeping in mind that you're not going to be hanging out there in the middle of the night in the hallway. Security will probably come by if you're doing that because of noise. There's
Right.
other guests
Right.
there. But also too, you'll have many chances to see them throughout the wedding weekend. If you
Yeah.
can't congregate within the rooms on the same
Mm-hmm.
floors, go to the lobby and have a
Mm-hmm.
good time.
And it's so funny because sometimes my team, if we remember, because we got so many things going on, when we book our rooms or within the block, we'll say like, hey, one of our rooms needs to be like literally right next to the bridal suite. Cause sometimes they're up at literally 2 o'clock in the morning, like ungodly hours. But then I'll say, I need all of our other rooms to be like as far away from the suite as possible because in case they're going to like congregate thereafter, like I need to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Been up for like 18 hours at
A
that point.
time
Like
to
I
rest.
cannot be next to them. But no, that's so helpful. One thing I was gonna dive into was oh my gosh, I literally just lost my train of thought. Hold on. Hold on.
Me all the time.
Oh, okay. I was going to chat about when you're contracting with couples now, what are some trends that you're seeing with the flow of events? Because I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the amount of events are growing more so than usual. Even for Indian weddings, they're growing. And I think it comes down to a lot of times where couples don't want the 18-hour marathon anymore. They don't want to cram everything into a day. So the events are more spread out. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, a lot of people are coming in instead of doing 2 days of events, they're trying to do 3 to 4 days of events.
Hmm.
I love when they try to do that because it's less stress on myself and my team because we have a little bit of breaks in between, and I'm sure that you love that as well because we have a little bit of more of a nap time.
Hmm.
It's a little harder sometimes depending on the time of the year when you want to do those breaks in events. Like you want to do the welcome reception the first night, and then maybe you just do the holiday on one day and then the Sangeet on another day. It's a little tough when you do that sometimes. So although it's nice to break events up, I think it's good to keep in mind the flexibility that if I really love this venue and I really love what they're offering me, am I okay with condensing maybe two events in one day and we'll keep the rest spread out?
Hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot of other events that I'm finding out. Like Mendy, I mentioned earlier that people usually do that in their suite. Some people are trying to throw whole parties for the Mendy now for like 350 people, when before that's something that people did in their
Hmm.
rooms and ordered some pizza and have a good time. Haldi is one that's picking up heavily. Before Haldi, I could put you in like a little space, have a good time. Here's a little bit of lunch. You're there for 2 hours, and now people are doing whole productions for that. You need the space from earlier in the day. You need a whole setup. Let's go on the beach. Let's go to the pool. So those are events that I'm seeing that are popping up a little bit more than just the Sangeet, the wedding ceremony, reception, and cocktail,
Yeah.
right? So there's all these extra events and ceremonies too, additional ceremonies, that it's not just the wedding ceremony or the haldi ceremony. So depending on where they're from, if they want to do extra ceremonies for the wedding guests, a smaller group, there's all these different pop-ups. I think that when they come to the property and they see all the space that we have,
Hmm.
they get inspired of like, maybe we can do that here and maybe we can add this event there. So it's definitely a growing weekend of events, but
Hmm.
having that flexibility of if I need to squish two things into one day and keep the rest flow, that you should be open to doing that as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because there's some times where, we recently went did a destination wedding and, our crew's flying in on a Wednesday and we're not leaving till like Sunday. And I mean, I love you, but like, I got other things going on in my life. So it's also just like from my perspective as a planner and also from the perspective of your guest, what's realistic in terms of their travel, their bandwidth. So, I mean, because we have like welcome drinks, then there's arrival, then it's welcome party, then it's haldi, then it's, I don't know, Sangeet night, then it's, wedding, and then they don't want to have the reception after the wedding. So then it becomes like a post-wedding dinner or a post-wedding brunch or a casual dinner, and then it moves into the next day. So it's a lot of events, and ultimately it's really whatever's up for that the family's up for, but we also talk about that too. Like let's talk about like bandwidth of your attendees as well, because a lot of times, at least for couples, they're millennials or they're Gen Zs now. The generation's definitely changed. And so you have this new generation coming in, and they may not be able to take that much time off work, right? And so it just depends. And so I think that's one thing for them to take into consideration as well.
Yeah, it's an exhausting weekend, and I think people underestimate how early you need to wake up to do these events.
Mhm.
How many times have we done a Sangeet at one night and then you're waking up at 3 in the morning to start getting ready for your ceremony
Mhm.
that's in the morning, So that's putting into consideration too, like maybe you want your event to end at 2 in the morning, but you have three other events going on the
Mhm.
next day. Do you really want your event to end at 2 in the morning?
Mhm.
Should guests kind of just go on their own and enjoy the
Right.
resort and like maybe go to the bar after 10 o'clock?
Mhm.
It's a heavy weekend. There's a lot going on, and you're pretty much exhausted by the time you get into your wedding because of the planning process.
Right.
You don't really take time off of work before your wedding.
Like
So it's like
decompressing.
a
You almost
mix
need
of
like a mini moon
everything.
from the planning to even get into because it's a lot. It's a lot. There's a
Lot.
lot going on. You're hosting obviously a ton of people. I will say I am a fan of the sort of traditional timeline flow going out the window a little bit. I have noticed that like just different patterns of things. Like I have a couple right now that they're doing a they're doing a Sangeet, but then the next day they're doing a like brunch and like cabana buyout type situation where they can just hang out at the pool with their attendees. And then they're doing like a sunset ceremony. So they have like the
Wow.
whole morning to just chill with their people, hang out. So they kind of like flipped it where instead of doing like a post wedding lunch, they did a brunch beforehand, then they flow into the wedding. And then after that, I know I'm like adding more food functions, but then after that, we did the little casual, like, you know, past hors d'oeuvres or like things like that, like just to give their guests those hospitality. And then everybody can go out that night afterwards. And then the next day is their cocktail and dinner reception. So that's nice too,
Mhm.
if you're able to break it up that way. But I've noticed that a lot of the timelines have been something up for discussion because it's almost like part of that guest experience is also creating something different that
Yeah.
doesn't feel just so like run of the mill.
Yeah, and I hear it from the parents all the time that they're like, "Oh, these kids that they don't wanna do the traditional stuff anymore."
Mhm.
Well, yeah, you don't have to throw a party for every single event for the weekend. I
Mhm.
love when they're like, "Let me do a sunset ceremony and then just
Mhm.
flow for the rest of the night and just keep the morning open for guests too." You're going to a destination for a reason.
Mhm.
Give your guests some time to enjoy the resort instead of being in back-to-back events that you're hosting, which is always great. Thank you so much. You're feeding them, they're having a good time, but it's a heavy weekend, you know?
Yeah.
So if you can break up one of those events or even combine two events into one event, that's always great. So the guests can really have the best time and it's
Mhm.
less stress for you because it's
Mhm.
one less event to worry about.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because I feel like, when I first started doing Indian weddings literally 15 years ago, which is hard to believe, but I started doing them 15 years ago, it was almost like to keep up with the tradition that the families wanted, it was all about just inviting everybody, like a high guest count, everyone felt included. You were providing that hospitality for everybody. Obviously it was all about like full meals.
Mhm.
I mean, we weren't even doing hospitality. It was like breakfast, lunch, dinner. And
Yeah.
it was like a very, that was a robust culinary experience and it was all Indian food.
Mhm.
And then, transition to, I feel like now, now couples, I don't feel, in my opinion, right, being someone who's in the industry, that the cultural expectation has shifted. I think just the way in which we're approaching it has. You don't need to necessarily have 600 people there in order to, be respectful of your roots. Or, I think it's really more from a culinary perspective. I was talking to Soy earlier about, the culinary perspective and the ceremony and those things. And obviously the traditions that you incorporate into if you're doing a Sangeet night are what carry that forward into the next generation. But I feel for parents, I think the fear is if we let go or we're flexible on some of these things, how is that going to carry out into the next generation and the one beyond that?
Yeah, but it's okay to let it go, you know?
Yeah.
We evolve,
Yes. It's okay.
and at the end of the day, it's what makes them happy, and you will still get, as a parent, the fun of, like, all your cousins are coming in and the
Mhm.
aunties are coming in, and, like,
Mhm.
you really get to enjoy the weekend, but it's okay to not do those celebrations. I've also seen people
Mhm.
take those one-off events off property. If they're local, they'll do it at their house, you know? You don't have to
Mhm.
do everything at the venue. Maybe you can do a small event back home where you live and keep those people close and do a big thing there and
Mhm.
then bring the rest of the stuff to the venue.
Mhm.
I think it's helpful too for them that you're going to save some money when you
Yeah,
do
you're gonna
stuff like
definitely save
that.
some money. I think that that's one thing definitely I was gonna also chat with you about is, when you're putting a contracts together and, obviously, there's estimates that go out and things of that. And how does your team, do you feel just like, because obviously there's a lovely, I don't know if we're calling it a service fee or now it's like catering fee or what it's technically called,
Service charge.
service charge. Thank you. But then I get the question of like, why is there a plus on the service charge? I'm like, that's another conversation. But, what does your team really provide, let's say, within that fee to give couples a little bit more context to what they're paying for?
Right. It's definitely a sticker shock when people see it. They're like, "Why am I paying for that? There's a caterer bringing in the food. What like it's like double the pricing." At the end of the day, you're choosing a luxury venue for a reason. You want to have a luxury experience.
Mm,
My servers are not coming from the ale house across the street. There is a level of service that we are providing for your guests to feel like, wow, I'm at the Diplomat or wow, I'm at the Ritz Carlton. It's what is kind of included in that. And of course, we partner with the caterers and we're the face value of it, right? So the caterers behind the scene putting everything together, but our servers are the ones that are actually on the floors doing the service, providing everything for you, making sure your guests, oh, you need some water, here's some water. Oh, you want a
mhm,
Coke? Let me go get a Coke for you real quick. So it's those little things, but it's really like you pick your venue based on how you want that luxury experience to feel. There's going to be a service charge included in that.
mhm.
And based on what that service charge looks like is what the expectation of what you're being provided.
Does that also include things like is that service charge, and maybe I'm getting this right or wrong because some properties are different. Does that include things like the china and the cutlery and
Yeah.
the standard tables and linens? I mean, is that incorporated with that?
Yeah, so we include a lot of the base equipment like
Mhm.
tables, chairs, dance floor, staging, china, glassware, white linens, white napkins. So a lot of this base equipment that is usually very expensive to bring in,
Mhm.
that's all included in these service charges. So when your caterer comes in, we partner with them
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, what do you need and what can we provide and what you have to bring in? Oh, you
Mhm.
need 10 chafing dishes? Here are all your chafing dishes. Just make sure you bring in your decor to make it look beautiful.
Mhm.
So it's those little things, but all of that is included, which is helpful too, because then you just have to worry about florals, maybe
Mhm.
some colorful linens, all the extra stuff that really makes the room looks nicer instead of going all out and renting. And people do it. People rent custom
Oh, yeah, you
bars,
can. Anything's
custom
doable.
tables. Go for it, bring it in. No one's stopping you, but at least you have an ease of knowing like I don't have to rent all of the equipment and I don't have to worry about setting everything up myself. The hotel sets up everything for you and we tear down everything for you.
Mhm.
You don't have to stay at the end of the night and be like, okay, everybody, go and put these chairs away. No,
Mhm.
go home, go to your room, get some rest. My team will come in and clean up everything.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to give like further, information on that with couples, because I often will ask, okay, so then there's the service charge and then there's the plus plus. From what I understand, the plus on that, aside from obviously the sales tax, is also, as it's been explained to me before, is like the janitorial staff that's going to come in after the event's over or prepping it in advance, cleaning all of the dishes that you utilize, things that is that correct to say that that's part of that?
Yeah, so with how our hotel is structured, the service charge basically is in a way to say how we pay our staff.
Mhm.
That's what they get off of it, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that service charge is how we pay for the team coming in to clean up.
Mm.
That's how the servers are getting paid at the end of the day as well.
Mhm.
So all of that kind of goes into those different people that you probably are not going to see for your entire stay here, but they are behind the scenes making sure everything looks nice and up to par for your event.
Right, because to some degree, y'all, the venue also has to make like a profit.
Yeah.
And if they're not providing you with any food because you're bringing in an outside caterer, there has to be a justification there for them to close down essentially all of their event spaces, their ballrooms, everything like that, make it exclusively for you. Um, as opposed to somebody like a white dress wedding that might be coming in and they're going to be like full on just doing culinary with your team as
Yeah,
well.
there's things on pricing that we will do our best to work with you based on like what your budget looks like. But
Mhm.
there's also things with pricing that we have no control over. At the end
Mhm.
of the day, it's a corporation,
Mhm.
right? This is a business, it's a for profit, right? So a service charge is just not something that I could bring down or
Mhm.
put a discount on. But what can I do to enhance your experience? Maybe I can't adjust the service charge, but how about I give you a complimentary stay for the weekend?
Mhm.
Here's a corner suite for 3 nights, or
Mhm.
here's a cabana because I know you want to have a good time for the weekend. So there's little things like that that we can enhance your experience versus bringing down some costs that we just can't control.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I appreciate the transparency there because there's a lot of times where planners are first to bat, is what I say. So it's kind of like we're being vetted by families. And a lot of times they're asking me, like, well, how hard do you negotiate? And like, are you going to get how much are we going to justify your fee from the savings? While I do feel pretty confident in that year course of time, aside from obviously the service that I offer, in the negotiations that I ask for, which quite frankly are things that maybe you're not seeing a cost value to, but it will absolutely add up in the long run, that enhances that experience. I feel like it's sort of an old school mentality or pre-COVID. I always use COVID as like my
Pre-COVID.
time, but like pre-COVID, where gone are the days where planners are coming in and they're like, "Hey, we need 20% off, or we need this." I mean, that's just not the reality.
Mhm.
The reality is that obviously, if you have a good working relationship with a venue, it's in everybody's benefit simply because we almost know what to expect. We sort of know historically what are things that you're most likely. I already know. I'm like, Gabby's probably going to say no to that. Or Gabby might work with us on that. You almost just get to know it from that perspective, which I think is very helpful. But I think it's a red flag if there's any planner out there that's telling you that they're going to come to this property or really any property for that matter, and they're just going to save you bukus of money because you're working with them because they're so good at negotiation. I mean, can you speak to that? Does that happen? I mean, obviously you work with other planners outside of ourselves.
I actually have not had a planner that has done that on my end. I
Mhm.
feel like for the most part, the planners that I have talked to in the past have an idea of how this goes. I
Mhm.
think given the property that we are, we get that level of planners.
Mhm.
But I do get, I think most of my inquiries or most of my clients don't even come in with planners. So
Mm.
I'm playing hardball with the parents, and it's part of their culture to negotiate. It's just normal, you know? So we also have to kind of put that into their heads of like, I'm here and I can negotiate with you. All of the pricing is flexible, but there are some things that we just can't go any lower than this. And this is
Mhm.
what we can provide for it, you know?
Mhm.
So it's kind of also having that conversation with the parents, because they might have experience because they had a daughter get married or their cousin got married, but it's different when it's you and this planner and this wedding and this venue, right? Everybody's
Right.
giving a little different information. And like you said, pre-COVID, so much has changed.
Mhm.
After COVID, there's a lot of new clauses on contracts. There's a lot of new procedures in place because of what happened in the past, that
Mhm.
there's just, you have to be flexible and be aware of the new times that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Uh, You know, when families are reaching out to properties and they are trying to negotiate, I think it's great. I mean, ultimately, it is, of course, a part of their culture and things to that end. Is there a time in which you reach a place where you say, listen, this is it. We're not going to be able to go much further than this. And like, I don't know, like maybe it's not the property for you. Have you ever had
Oh
that
my gosh,
situation?
so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that come in here with unrealistic budgets,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine for maybe another venue, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes back into doing a little bit of research before you reach
Mm-hmm.
out to places.
Mm-hmm.
The pricing that I'm giving you is not going to be the same pricing that a DoubleTree is going to give you. They're both Hiltons, they're both great properties, but it's just a different level of a property.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people come in with these really unrealistic budgets that I just don't even know what venue can give you that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be forefront with you, like, hey, before I even get into any phase of negotiating or anything, be like, hey, if you have any flexibility with your budget, let me know and I'll be more than happy to help you. But in
Mm-hmm.
this, if this is it for you, we're probably not the spot for you.
Yeah.
And it's in your best interest as well. If you're capping out at a specific amount, don't book somewhere that you know is going to go higher, because then you're just going to be
Right.
stressed out the whole
Right.
time.
Right. Or you're like right at that end of that comfort zone and you've got no cushion. So because as you plan, like there has to be some fluidity. And I always say, like, hey, listen, your budget, like even if your guest count's gonna drop by 50, I say that's great. Let's keep that as like our cushion room
Right.
because there's gonna be things that are gonna come up that you just haven't even thought of yet. And I think
So
that that's
many things
important.
pop up during the planning process.
Mm-hmm.
Guest count increase is probably number one.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not accounting for that when you're doing your budgets, you're gonna be stuck in a hard pinch, right?
Yeah.
Decorating and adding florals. Florals are very expensive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You're probably gonna be adding more than what you thought originally. You're never gonna have a full idea of how much the wedding is gonna cost, but having a buffer is gonna help you. I can't even tell you how many weddings I've had that they're like, I'm $600,000 over my budget. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing?
I know. It
But at the
happens.
same time, you just didn't prepare correctly. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really important to have a planning team from the beginning that can help you with that. What I love about you guys is that you keep track of the budgets and you like get all the cost estimates together and put everything together. I think that's the number one benefit of having a wedding planner, and also dealing with the vendors.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't tell you how many weddings come in here and they're like, oh, like we don't want a planner. It's 500 people. Like we'll do it ourselves. We have experience. We don't allow that here. You
Yeah.
need to have a planner,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, when we're in that like 2 month out mark, there's so much going on. You're not going to
Mhm.
be able to handle the stress when it comes to, you got to leave it to the professionals.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm a big advocate for, I'm definitely not the planner that's going to come in and like, I love the terminology day of coordination, like minor rant, but it's like day of coordination is my favorite. First off, that doesn't exist for a multicultural
No,
South Asian wedding.
for any wedding.
I'm like, there's nobody that's going to come in day of and like rescue this event. I mean, quite frankly, it's not that you didn't plan it well. It's not that I'm hating on that you didn't. You probably have fantastic vendors, but at the end of the day, a day of coordinator is a coordinator. They are not a planner.
Hmm.
And so you're the planner.
Yeah.
When you come on site for the wedding, guess who they're going to be tapping on the shoulder, constantly asking questions? It's going to be you because
Yeah.
you didn't hire a planner. You hired a coordination team. And so there's just a big difference there. But rant over, I think it's really just important that couples do understand that distinction and that difference. Couple other last questions, Gab, because I could keep you here all day chatting about
Hmm.
all this amazing stuff. But what are the most important early discussions that you feel like couples should be having with their venues? I know you talked about it's almost like if I don't have transparency about everything, it's difficult to contract. So, what would you say, or what advice would you give to couples and families in terms of when they're talking about venues or they're talking about what they need from properties? Like, what are the things they should be talking about outside of the obvious, like potential start and end times?
Yeah, that is a big one that we don't get a lot, the start and end times, because it gives us an idea. Sometimes we're layering events on top of each other that if I know that you need the room at 7 a.m. for setup, that helps me know that I cannot put you in the room at 1 p.m.
Hmm.
Transparency is really, really big in the front end because if you're not transparent with what your weekend's gonna look like, and if you're adding events after you contract, your budget is gonna go out of the roof, and then you're gonna get upset with me because I'm the venue with at the end of the day you just didn't tell me ahead of time that you were expecting to have breakfast lunch and dinner every day for 4 days straight, or you need to have this ceremony.
Mm.
So that's probably one of the top things when you're in the contracting phase. The more that I know, the better. I can also help guide you, like maybe you don't need to add breakfast, maybe your guests can just go and enjoy the hotel breakfast and then we just worry about lunch and dinner. Like, I'm here to guide you as best as I can with my integrity as a person, to make sure that you're not getting screwed over at the end of the day because so many things pop up. The money is out the door, the budget's increased, it's a lot of stress. Who are you leaning on to kind of guide you from the starting point of what is this actually going to look like for us?
Mhm.
When I'm contracting, I'm very clear with the information that's given to me because I want you to be having a full picture of what the costs are going to look like with the plus plus included so that you can prepare yourself with what that budget's going to look like because you're doing me first to figure out what the rest of the vendors are going to look like, what the rest of the budget's going to look like. So it's really important to be clear, and this is what our guest count's looking at. These are what our guests are looking at. If you tell me from the beginning that most of your guests are coming from out of town, I can guide you in saying maybe you need the room block from the day before. So it's just those little things that it really helps me provide you with the
Yeah.
best experience because once you contract, you're probably not going to talk to me for like 6 months
Mhm.
until we get closer to the wedding.
Mhm.
So you just want to make sure you have everything in order before you start
Mhm.
getting into the chaos of everything.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant to ask because another thing too is, I always tell couples like if you don't contract for all the event spaces you also need, like you're not the only show in town. I know
Right.
you it's your wedding and like but you're not our only client. And so what happens is that availability, you could be booked out. I mean, they could have a corporate luncheon happening in that meeting room that you potentially needed, but it's like if you don't kind of grab it at that time, it's not a guarantee that it's going to be there later. And I know that's been a point of frustration for the family where they're like, oh, let's just extend the hospitality room by an extra 2 days, because we got some early arrivals. And it's like, well, it's not available.
Yeah, sometimes you can't do that.
Yeah. And I think that that's really important. I think that's very critical in that part. Okay. Awesome. Um, and then I guess my other question for you is just for conclusion is how important do you feel that it is for venues and planners and the vendors to be communicating appropriately? Like to what end do you actually communicate with the vendors? I mean, obviously, naturally at this property, you would have planners involved and things to that end, but what does that look like for you? What does success in communication look like for you?
You would think that I have planners communicating for me, but that's not always the case. Some
Yeah.
people cheap out on their planners,
Mhm.
and I have to end up being planner and calling vendors and getting information. And sometimes in
Mm.
South Florida, these vendors don't speak any English. So you need to find someone to speak Spanish to talk to them.
Mhm.
With a hotel of this size, there's a lot of regulations, you know? You can't just show up here and unload and call it a day. There's loading dock hours, there's noise procedures, there's cleanup fees if things happen. I need to have certificate of insurances. If you say this to a regular person off the street, they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? What is all this stuff?
Mhm.
So having a planner there to kind of direct all of that is so important. At the end of the day, I'm not your wedding planner. I'm just your hotel contact. I'm here to do everything I can to make sure that you're not stressed out of your brain.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're paying a planner for a reason, right?
Mhm.
They're the ones that need to kind of handle the vendors. I can't even tell you how many vendors have worked here for years and they're like, where's the loading dock? How do I get to this barn space? And then they show up and be like, oh, I used to work here 20 years ago. Like the locations haven't changed, you know? So it's so important to have that communication and also introducing the hotel contact to the vendors, right? So if you are the planner and you're kind of calling all the shots, make sure that the venue has the contact information of all of the vendors,
Mhm.
because in the case of my team can't get in contact with you, we can get in contact with the vendors directly.
Mhm.
Sometimes when a decorator's loading in, they leave their trucks abandoned in the docks for hours. There's no need for my team to call you when they can just directly call the decorating team and be like, hey guys, I know you're setting up right now, but come and move your truck.
Mhm.
Just little things like that. I think it's really helpful. At the end of the day, we're a team together. And it's not like you're on this on your own. I'm here to support you. And finding that venue and that connection of who's the best person for me, like our teams get along very well. I love working with your team because the timelines that they send me are very clear. They send me all of the vendor information that in the case of if Abby can't get in contact with someone, I can call them directly and ask the questions that I need. Just little things like that I think is just so helpful because I can't even tell you how many weddings I've had here that I'm the one I'm contacting the client like, hey, who's your decorator? Can I get their information? Because the planner didn't give me anything. I've
Mhm.
gotten timelines via text message before. Like, we got to get everything together because when you're not communicating to the venue, the service falls. The
Mhm.
timelines fall, things fall apart, and the clients don't know that it was the coordinator that messed up or the vendor that messed up. In their eyes, it's the venue, right? So
Right.
they're gonna ask me the questions of why did this happen?
Right.
So it's really, really important to have everybody connected and
Mhm.
everybody communicating. I love a group chat. If you need to put me in a group chat with the caterer and the planner, let's do it. What do we need to talk about? What time do you need everything set up by?
Mhm.
The more communication that you can have, the better.
I literally love that, Gabby, because for anyone listening right now, this is literally what I mean when I say you need a venue partnership.
Yes.
As you can see, I mean, even in the dire hour, like she's stepping in because she's in it for the success of your event. And while I do think that like I wouldn't encourage you to obviously, not have a professional support you in this way, it's for me when I have clients that are picking their wedding venues, I always say, let's just make sure that they're going to be a good partner
Mhm.
because there's a difference between booking a good piece of business and being passionate about that business and ensuring that you can create a successful experience for that couple and genuinely caring.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that is unique in our industry is that, especially with venues, there can be turnover, there can be things like that. And so you really just want to make sure that when you're signing the contract or selecting a property, that you've got someone that's here, boots on the ground. Like you're not even in the same state you're planning a wedding, and
Yeah.
you need to make sure there's someone here that's going to be advocating for you and supporting you like every step of the way.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I've played wedding planner before. I've been there stuffing roses in the little pouches before because the wedding planner is nowhere to be seen. I
Yes.
can't even tell you how many nights I've left here crying because I'm like, I hope they don't hate me. I did
Mhm.
everything I could. Like, at the end of the day, I'm going to make sure that everything goes as best as it can for your wedding, but it's not my responsibility to say. It's not a part of my job description. I'm doing it because I want to make sure you're good. I make a connection with my clients, right?
Mhm.
But not every venue is like that, and not every person or wedding coordinator or even hotel contact is like that. So it's just keeping in mind, turnover is a big thing. When I started here, it was COVID time.
Mhm.
I had some weddings that they've talked to like 4 catering managers before they got
Mhm.
to me. Thank God they got to me, right?
Mhm.
But also that's why a planner is important. So even if there's turnover in a hotel, at least your planner can be there and keep everything together, that if the hotel doesn't have the best contact and they're kind of all over the place, they know, okay, this is how this property runs and I'm going to make sure everything goes through. So it's kind of that two-way street and having those two support systems that in case one falls through, you have the other one to pick you up.
Yeah, like what does ultimately consistency also look like in your planning experience? Because I've absolutely had literally like a month before a wedding. It's happened to me multiple times that I've like worked at other venues and it's like, oh, by the way, like this person's leaving or they're not gonna be on property anymore. And then it's like, oh my God, you just hope that they've like carried through all of the email exchanges. Like I've literally had people like, I'm sorry, but there's like too many email exchanges. I'm gonna need you to like, and you're like, what? And so it's important because we document everything, but it's like, yeah, I mean, to those partners out there that aren't hiring planners, that can be a challenge. But Gabby, we always end our podcast with saying, you don't know what you don't know. Is there any parting words or advice that you would give families these days when it comes to planning destination weddings or just a resort experience event or just something that you feel like is a really good takeaway?
I think be as honest as you can. Even if you don't have an idea, lean on the people that you're hiring or you're
Mhm.
inquiring with to kind of guide the way. If you feel like it's not the best guidance, look somewhere else.
Mhm.
There's so many resources available to us now that you can just go on Google and search things. But just having an idea ahead of time and being clear with what your expectations are from the beginning can really change the planning experience from contracting to the day of. I think it's a huge, huge difference in how you're going to experience the whole weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Gabby, for your time. I
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank you.
much.